Port de Grave and Minister responsible for women and gender equality, Pam Parsons. You are on the air.
Good morning, Brian, and good morning to all your listeners, of course. And first of all, before I start, I would just like to, of course, send prayers and keeping those residents in our thoughts who are enduring those wildfires in the areas of the province where they're happening. It's actually neighbouring my district. It's the next district over where they've had the evacuation. So certainly our prayers are with them and also with the firefighters who are on the ground doing everything they can to contain this and ultimately come to a resolution.
Yeah, we echo every single bit of that, Pam, our minister. Yeah, you know, you're pretty close there. You're on the ground. It's your neck of the woods. What are you hearing? Like, even just, have you been up that way, tried to get there, or have you been speaking to anyone directly impacted?
No, I haven't, and it's about give or take an hour away for where I am,
right.
Where the locations are. But I do know that the town of Bay Roberts and the volunteer department there have immediately put a fire ban in place for wildfires, and I imagine that fire departments are doing that across the province, given the time of year. So please God, like I said, we get that contained. Hopefully no lives are lost. And ultimately, we understand that there's properties have been damaged. So, again, our prayers are with everybody involved. Also, Brian, I want to give a condolences to Mark Hiscock's family. Mark was an amazing person, and he was a personal friend of mine. I've known him over the years. As a matter of fact, I've even encouraged him to consider politics because of the great person that he is. It's a great loss to the province and such a young man. But I just want to send out my sincere, heartfelt condolences to his wife, all of his family, and of course his bandmates. He and Chris Andrews were like brothers, and of course all members of Shanneyganook. We saw Bud Davidge also, paying tribute. So many lives have been touched by Mark, and he certainly will be missed. So my heartfelt condolences to him. It's a big loss. And
I'm really glad you mentioned that. The forest fires and everything this morning. I wanted to get the most pertinent information out there. We did talk a lot about Mark yesterday when I hosted Tim's show, and we were inviting anyone who would like to call this morning. Absolutely, and there's more than enough people who would like to call, I'm sure. But Chris or anyone like that is certainly. I know it's been hard. But certainly Chris or any of the family, or certainly any close friends, as you said, we were all, just intertwined one way or another. Especially, Mark and I went back 30 years or so down to the Scademia days. Sailing out when I first met him and Chris back in 1990, I think it was, when Charlie Anson was first. They were just sitting in the stern of the Scademia, playing a few diddlies, as we used to say. And I said yesterday, you could tell then that this wasn't. I remember going out. I mentioned this yesterday. I'll just say it again. I remember going out on one cruise because I would get off at a certain time of the day, and I'd go down. They say, "Yes, but come on, we just have a gab." So I go out for the afternoon, and it's funny, the tourists, they get on that boat to see Cape Spear and possibly a whale or two, or maybe even an iceberg around the Narrows, which a little more rare than say around Twillingate. But in any event, it struck me the few times I went out. You think people are looking over the side of the boat and looking at Signal Hill and looking at they're fixated on the two of them and having a ball. It was tough. They had the puffins or the seabirds and the whales and the sites had to compete with Mark and Chris, and it was no contest.
Yeah, we've got a lot of so much great talent, and we're very special. We're special people here in Newfoundland and Labrador with regards to our tourism and our arts and our culture, our talent. We have so many here to be celebrated in this province. And on that note, before I move off this topic, I want to give a big shout out to my good friend and my constituent, Jacob Lewis. As we know, we're seeing him on the big screen now with Canada's Got Talent. And so hats off to him for what he's done. It's very clear that Shania Twain is a huge fan of Jacob.
Even though she wasn't there last time, hey?
Yeah, but hats off to him. He's God love him. He's a good hockey player as well, but he's a sweetheart, and he lives here in my district. I've known him, and of course his family over the years. So good luck to Jacob, and all the very best to him. And anything that we can do to support one of our own Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, that's what we do. We come together. Yeah. But now I do have some information to get out, and I know your time is precious, and I know there are people waiting. So if I could, I'd like to talk about the brilliant scholarship program that I announced yesterday, and this is in celebration of the 100th anniversary of women achieving, or gaining rather, the right to vote. So I was at Ascension Collegiate High School in Bay Roberts yesterday to make this provincial announcement. And what we will do, we're announcing 100 one-time scholarships valued at $1,000 each to be awarded through the province based on the following criteria. So community contributions, leadership potential, those who demonstrate passion or initiative for leadership in school and throughout their communities, and of course academic performance. And this will be for women, for girls and gender diverse from grades 10 to 12. And those scholarships are opened immediately. So even grade 12 students who are finishing out this current academic year are welcome to apply, and they will be considered. And I encourage everybody to do that. And again, it's from coast to coast here in our beautiful province, and it is in celebration of the 100th anniversary. Because as we know, Brian, and of course you, being the news expert and the history buff and everything else.
Throw expert. I'd be wary of throwing the word expert in there, Pam. But you go ahead.
Women only got the right to vote 100 years ago. So think about that.
Yes.
Going back as far as responsible government, women, they had to fight long and hard for that, and for decades. And of course, as we know, it was led by Armine Gosling and her team of suffragists. And finally, although there was much opposition and ridicule even that these women faced, they won the right to vote and to run for office and to hold public office and to ultimately get out there and cast ballots. So,
Pam, you mentioned the Gosling, just briefly, sorry to interrupt, but is there a date for the statue unveiling in Bannerman?
It's my understanding, and this is led by the great organization Persistence Theatre. It's my understanding that will be unveiled in June, this coming June, in Bannerman Park. So we all look forward to that. And as you know, we were happy to contribute toward this brilliant statue of Armine Gosling of $65,000 for the government of Newfoundland, what we've put forward for that to support them. And that would be only the third woman statue in this province. And one of the three is the famous Amelia Earhart statue. And we know the controversy that has happened here in my home district here in Harbour Grace. We know Amelia, of course. We have rich aviation history. Amelia Earhart took off from the Harbour Grace airstrip. And we're very disheartened. Everybody is very, very disheartened on what had happened. And how, well, you know the story, of course.
Yes, sir.
Someone took the statue. So
do we know, you're pretty close to it in the MHA for the area. Now, the mayor has talked, Don Coombs has talked about information that leads him to believe that it has been taken apart or somehow dismantled or broken up. If he has that kind of information, leads you to think that, it could lead to more. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I hate to use that pun, that metaphor right now. But my bad. But have you heard anything on that front? It's been pretty quiet now since the mayor said that they had information that it was around, but just not intact.
Only what we've all heard publicly. That's all I have heard. But regardless, if there's opportunity to return this statue, whether it be in pieces, I hope that happens. Although many people are not confident that will happen. But it's just really disheartening. Yeah. And everybody is really taking the wind of the sails. But that said, there are many people coming forward who want to throw support behind this and to perhaps erect a new statue. And anything that I can do, certainly as the MHA, it has my full support. But again, back to that statue, and there are only three statues of women. But with the Armine Gosling coming, hopefully it's the start of a series, because we have so many talented, strong women across Newfoundland and Labrador that are worthy of such recognition. And on that note, I will conclude by saying also this week I announced the opening of the violence prevention grants, the Indigenous Violence Prevention Grants.
Yes.
Because as we know, May 5th was National Awareness for Red Dress Day. And of course that impacts, and it's all about the missing, murdered Indigenous women and girls. So here in Newfoundland and Labrador, through my Office of Women and Gender Equality, I announced $271,000 for these Indigenous Violence Prevention Grants at the program. They are now open. So again, I encourage these organizations to certainly apply for this funding. And this funding, the eligibility will depend on, it's about increasing awareness, education, training, investing in leadership development, building community capacity, and as well as enhancing opportunities for healing. And I will say that it's extremely important, and as a matter of fact, it's essential. It's the only way that these initiatives are Indigenous-led. We are here to support our Indigenous partners in these grants and whatnot. So some information there for your listeners. So again, condolences to Mark Hiscock's family. Like it's left a hole in many people's hearts, especially during the time.
And the ECMA's on the go. Exactly. And Pam, I shouldn't let it go. I mean, you're in that perception. You're in that talent pool too, as a great local musician. That people may or may not know. But I mean, that's one of the other ways we would have all been connected along with Mark. So.
Everybody's connected in our great province,
Absolutely.
We don't have to look far, and but again, I just can't say enough. We've got so much talent and so much pride and so much to celebrate here in our great Newfoundland and Labrador. So on that note, I bid you a great day. Certainly reach out anytime if I could ever be of any help to you, and of course my constituents here in the great district of Harbour Grace Portagrave. My constituency office number is 786-1372. Should anybody need my help or look for assistance, we're certainly here to take the call and to do whatever we can to help.
And Pam, just as a member of cabinet, have you had a cabinet meeting on the forest fires today?
No, and as you know, it's a transitioning time. I want to also congratulate our new premier. As you know, so that there's a lot of transition happening right now, and the pieces are coming together. We are back in the House of Assembly on Monday, and it's going to be a busy week in that House of Assembly. We've already been put on notice that it's going to be a lot of late nights. So a lot of work to be done. But that said, congratulations to Premier Hogan, as well as congratulations to my colleague John Abbott on a fabulous campaign. Got it.
Pam Parsons, the MHA, of course, for Harbour Grace, Portagrave, and the Minister responsible for Women and Gender Equality. Thanks for the call, Pam.